Hello. Welcome to Revelator Alpha Bike Mag Show, the live video podcast, radio show, live stream, whatever you want to call it. So tonight's show is all about some new bikes, some motorcycle industry gossip, and talking about free speech, not only here online, but also about fact checking and getting your facts straight before you open your mouth, let's say, or before you say something, or just rein in what you say sometimes. So I'm going to give you a little example, just a little example of what I mean later on. But anyway, uh, you know, all of that is secondary to talking about bikes, really talking about bikes. So I'm going to be talking about this lot. Um, uh, so some players in the market. There are a couple of other manufacturers I'm going to be talking about as well, but it's all about new bikes, really. And we're going to be talking about Motorcycle Live Show here in the UK, where they're showing all the new bikes. But really, it's a motorcycle magazine show where I'm going to just be talking about different topics. But first of all, it's all about the bikes. And obviously join in the chat. Please subscribe to the show and to the channel. Leave your comments and ask any questions. And you can always show your support just by the super chat, super thanks, and super stickers and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so let's get straight into it, shall we? Let's get straight into it. Harley Davidson have been in the news this morning, and if you've been watching my channel this week, I've released three bike news daily, very short videos, just giving you kind of headlines of what's going on. The news coming from India this week. Let me just share the screen here, and it's from the Business Standard. But there's lots of different publications that have been sharing this story this week. Essentially, when Harley Davidson left India a couple of years ago, they pulled out the market. They used to produce the 500 and the 750 street there. Weren't really getting many sales there. And actually, overall Harley Davidson sales in India weren't very great at all. A premium brand at premium prices that obviously not a lot of people can afford. Okay, so they pulled out. However, on pulling out, they established a partnership with Hero motorcycle company, who are basically the biggest motorcycle brand in the world in terms of unit sales and how many small cc motorcycles that they produce for the Indian market. So they just trumps it just on the sales that they produce, right? So now it was supposed to be that Harley Davidson teamed up with the Hero, so Hero could carry on as being a kind of small distributor for Harley Davidson in India, but also continue with any kind of service packages or any kind of support for existing Harley Davidson owners. So they didn't leave the Harley Davidson owners in India high and dry. There's always Hero that could offer some kind of bridge or some kind of go-between between them and the company. However, it was a little bit more than that. And actually, what it's transpired is now that Harley Davidson and Hero have been actually in a real partnership, in that they're going to produce motorcycles. Yes, motorcycles of a smaller cc, a smaller displacement. And it's reported that it's going to be, let me just put the full screen here, it's going to be between 350 and 850 cc, and it's going to be at the end of 2023 into 2024. And it's basically going to be talking about, there's some speculation of which size it's going to come out first. Many are saying that it's going to be a 350 400cc motorcycle that's going to compete with the Royal Enfield sort of market. Now, obviously, this isn't the first time that a Western company has teamed up with an Indian company. Basically, you've got the Bajaj have teamed up with a Triumph. You got TVS have teamed up with Hero, and now obviously, sorry, TVS teamed up with BMW, and now Hero obviously properly have teamed up with Harley Davidson. So, what does this mean? Essentially, what this means is that Harley Davidson have have really made steps into getting somewhere that they can produce small displacement motorcycles, just like they did back in the AMF years. You know, they actually had lots of small displacement motorcycles. And this is what I keep on saying about Harley Davidson. They need to enter this market, right? However, there's also talk, as you've been watching my channel for a long time, about Harley Davidson having a link up with the Chinese motorcycle manufacturers to produce now like a 500cc motorcycle as well. So where is this hookup going to come from? Are they producing the exact same bike for two different markets, one for the Chinese market, one for the Indian market? And are they going to be essentially the same bike? I've got a feeling they are. They're going to be the same bike, maybe with just a different bit of styling, maybe different badging, but essentially it'd be the same bike. So there's the bit of confusion there. Are they producing two different bikes for two different markets, or are they going to be producing one bike that's going to be sold in only two markets? But here, this is just about India. This is just about India. So the Hero tie-up is not only to produce one bike. Actually, I believe they were talking about producing 10 models, 10 different models. Now, what the time frame of that would be over the next 3 or 4 years, 5 years, who knows? Now, bear in mind, this has all come from some kind of leaked email that has come from Hero themselves, and they've gone on to another distributor or something like that. And it's let me just have a look here, see what it says. Doesn't really say here. It's basically talking about the history between Hero and Harley Davidson. The partnership with Hero seems to have given Harley a new lease of life in India, as I said, because they pulled out of there as well. And it's all about exploiting or developing this mid-cc, this mid-sized motorcycle market, which Hero want to rise up into more and more, because as I say, they're predominantly a small cc motorcycle manufacturer, and then Harley Davidson need to come down into bringing that premium status, but bringing it down. But the question I have is whether these motorcycles will be sold in the rest of the world. I mean, that's hard to say. I mean, and whether you in the Western countries, whether you would even want to buy one. You know, if you're in the United States, in the Canada, all around Europe, would you buy one? Well, I would like to think that many people would, and I think it really depends on one thing. It depends on the price. It just really depends on the price. How expensive are they going to be? Or not even that. That's the wrong word. How cheap are they going to be? Because if they're produced in India and you're going to mass produce these motorcycles for the masses, then they're going to have a much lower unit cost because they're produced in India, right? And conversely, if the Chinese Harley Davidson ever comes off, that's going to be produced at a much lower unit cost. But if those bikes are exported, to Western countries, let's say, then surely you're going to have a much lower unit cost as well. So therefore, instead of spending, your entry level motorcycle into Harley Davidson, let's say, might be, I don't know, 12,000, 13,000 pounds, dollars, shekels, whatever it is. Actually, you could come in at a lot lower, $5,000, $6,000, whatever it is, $10,000. But $5,000, $6,000 would be a fantastic price for an entry level into a Harley Davidson, albeit not made in United States, or not assembled in the United States, but produced elsewhere. Many people would not like that at all. But actually, many people would. Many people who would like the Harley Davidson. Now, people would say, well, why didn't they just extend the 500 and the 750 street bikes from back in the day? The problem is that they weren't great designs and they were still overpriced for what they were. and that was essentially Harley Davidson producing those motorcycles, albeit in Indian factories. Now this is more of a collaboration with an Indian motorcycle manufacturer who understand, I would say, a lot more acutely about lower cost base. Will this come off? Will we see these bikes in the Western world, or around Europe? I keep on saying Western world. I don't mean that, but you know what I mean. In Europe and in the United States and Canada. It'd be interesting. It would be interesting to see that. I mean, I would imagine that these are purely going to be initially for the Indian market, and depending on how popular they are and how well received they are, certainly in the press, and certainly when you have proper imagery, then would they sell them elsewhere? I don't know. I mean, obviously, Harley Davidson motorcycles are being sold in in India, and also through the Hero relationship as well. So the Pan America is doing quite well over there. The Sportster S is doing quite well over there. So Hero and Harley Davidson have been doing lots of speed trials over there as well. So it'll be an interesting thing. I will get into the comments as well, but please leave your comments. Let us know your thoughts. So say there's a Seattle, USA in the house. A Mad Mac, hello. Estival, hello. It says, if it's as good cheap as a Royal Enfield, exactly. This is my point here. It's got to be competitive of price, or whatever, however many bikes they're going to produce with all these new designs. It's got to be competitive, and if it's not, then it will fall by the wayside. I'm afraid to say. But there we go. I mean, so this is Harley Davidson. This is them expanding. It's the writing's been on the wall for a while, and I've been talking about this for a long time. In that, as I say, if you watch my channel, you'll realize this, that that I'm talking about the possibilities. I'm talking about what could happen, not only with Harley Davidson but lots of other manufacturers. I'm talking about where there are gaps in the market, or where a manufacturer is not really doing that great. This is what they need to do to protect their future, to invest in the future. And we're talking about motorcycle manufacturers, or all manufacturers, pretty much all manufacturers. They're very rarely just a national entity anymore. They have global contacts, global links, global partnerships, global investment these days as well. So it's very hard, to say that that's an American company or Italian company or British company now with let's say Triumph, for example. Yeah, British company, but they have foreign contacts and foreign relationships, but their bikes are produced elsewhere as well. Harley Davidson, they produce a fair amount of their motorcycles abroad. A lot of their materials come from abroad as well, and certainly for those motorcycles that are sold outside of the United States, that is definitely the case. So here we have a situation where now they're ramping up. I thought the low displacement engine Harley Davidson was going to come from China. It now appears it's going to come from India as well. So watch your space on this. Watch your space. See what happens. But say they have had a 2-year relationship. It's obviously they've been working on it. It's all on the design phase, apparently. Different news media have different spins on this in the last 2 days, ever since I made the video as well. So it is starting to gather pace. So watch this story unfold in the next few months, and certainly over this next year, 2023 as well. It'd be interesting to see if Harley Davidson themselves make any kind of announcement or any kind of statement, let's say, in the January reveal. It'd be very interested, I think. I doubt they will. I've got a feeling I doubt they will. But now the cat's out of the bag, as it were, albeit this is like some kind of leaked demo, or memo, I should say. Who knows? But let's see. Let's just see how it goes. But my understanding is that this is purely for the Indian market. But I asked the question: what about the Chinese market? Chinese Harley Davidson, the one that was supposed to be in development for the last 4 or 5 years. But where are these bikes going to be sold? Will they come over to Europe and the United States? Will they be more well received in Europe than they would be in the United States? What about age? Ages of the customers. Maybe the younger customers would readily accept these. Now, bear this in mind: the popularity of the Royal Enfield Himalayan as well. Not only in Europe but also in the United States and other small displacement engines, where they're coming in on price. And also, you got to look at the electric motorcycle market as well. And I got a story about that is in a moment as well. But the electric motorcycle market, how they're coming down and down in price, especially for the short range e-bikes. You got to be looking at these cheaper bikes, cheaper alternatives for people to not only use on a daily basis, but also to attract them into the two-wheeled mobility, as I keep on saying. But hey, I think it's interesting. This is a very interesting time for this sector. I think it's a very interesting time for Harley Davidson. If you're a Harley Davidson fan, I think and I am, of course, but I'm also a motorcycle fan first and foremost. But I'm going to be looking at this, keeping an eye on what's going on. Okay, so that is the Harley Davidson primary story. I thought I'd lead with that tonight and give you a little bit of a bit of insight. Look, I'm just going to talk a little bit about this, a little bit of a funny one, I think. Okay, so I'm going to bring up this publication here. This is High Snobiety. I love this title here. I got a couple of stories from them recently, but the interesting thing here is that Harley Davidson again have teamed up with another foreign, a foreign. It's a collaboration, okay, and it's with the Neighborhood brand from Japan, I believe they are, and basically the Neighborhood, the fashion brand, have just released their fall winter collection. But basically what they've done, they've teamed up with the Harley Davidson logo branding. Now, for me, this is the interesting thing. They've basically got their videos here, their publications, and all this kind of stuff, right? But actually, what this has kind of signified is that Harley Davidson have moved into other markets. They're teaming up with other brands, well-established brands in those markets. But also, this brand in particular takes great inspiration from Japanese motorcycle clubs. Well, they say historic outlaw gangs here, which is, there we go, that term again. But it's basically motorcycle clubs from Japan, and and it's called a special thing. Let me just show you what that is here, if I can. I hope I don't get this name right. Bozozoku Biker Scene, and their uniforms. And basically, these uniforms, here we go, it's down there. It's got like skull and bones, and people are riding around with the skull and bones on their back and everything like that. And if you ever seen the Japanese bike clubs, it's kind of half helmets, that kind of thing, shades and all that kind of thing. I mean, look, it's pretty cool, but it's not only Harley Davidson. They got obviously other brands, lots of other brands in their motorcycle clubs over there as well. But obviously here, this is a collaboration not only in styles but in companies, but also in the name. The name features directly on the branding. Harley Davidson one side, Neighborhood as the manufacturer there as well. So look, it's interesting, I think, that not only have Harley Davidson done this, because it's always been Harley Davidson merchandise, really, but now they've collabed up with another fashion manufacturer, let's say, okay, albeit in Japan, but very interesting, I think. Very interesting. So that's Harley Davidson here. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit now. Well, Harley Davidson, live wire, but it's all about this. Okay, it's all about electric. It's all about electric. It's all about, well, Harley Davidson, but the live wire, as I kind of briefly mentioned before. And it's a great story. This is a great story, and I wanted to share it with you. And you probably might have heard about it already before. This is a guy in Australia who's ridden a Harley Davidson live wire, not the live wire one. This is a Harley Davidson live wire, and he's basically ridden it right across Australia, the Nullarbor plain, and it's basically gone from Perth in Western Australia to all the way to Sydney. And let me just show you here. And they kind of superimpose the map over the United States just to give you an idea here. But basically, it's basically coast to coast, right? And it's 4,700 kilometers, I think, something like. It took him 28 days. And they have these kind of they're vast expanses over there of nothingness, really, absolute nothingness. So they have what they call these roadhouses, which are kind of fueling stations, shops, little, maybe sometimes little guest houses, right in the middle of nowhere. And you just basically go in there, filling up, and they have charging stations there as well. So he could charge up his bike, but most of the time he was out of range. So he just pull into like guest houses or pull into people's houses and literally plug in and charge up the live wire as he went along. I mean, it's a great story, 21 21 days it took him. A great adventure, and you see. Let me just show you the pictures here as well in proper. Yeah, still great. A guy called Ed. I don't know what his surname is, but he worked out exactly how much it was going to take, how far he could go. He had to go slower on a lot of journeys so he could increase his range. He was trying to make use of tailwinds. And there's a picture here in a roadhouse, and everybody else is eating their evening dinner, and there he is just charging his bike in the corner. A lot of these places didn't charge him to recharge the bike. Funny enough, they were like saying, well, if you're staying here, you can get the electricity for free. And he came into a bit of criticism because whilst he was trying to extend the range, he had to go really slow on the main highway as well. But there's the interesting thing here. I got to find the actual bit here where it says how much it cost him. And I think he had lots of support and stuff like that. Okay, some statistics from the trip here. Okay, so this I find absolutely incredible, right? From the trip, guess how much this cost him, right? The total electricity cost to travel, what was it, 4,700 4,000 plus kilometers, right, coast to coast in Australia. It cost him $39.29. $39.29. Now, I don't know. I think that's where, because most of the time he was able just to get it free. In one place, the Royal Flying Doctor Service, which is basically a doctor service that flies around in planes, and they go to all these remote places, all these remote sheep stations right in the middle of nowhere, and they basically go to ill or critically ill patients. They load them up and they fly them thousands of miles to the nearest hospital, would you believe, right? But anyway, that's a volunteer service, or a charity service, as it were. But basically, at their stations, they got free electric charging stations as well. So he was able to go into a couple of those, I believe, and charge up, and he just gave a $10 donation. So that $39.29 actually included a $10 donation to this Royal Flying Doctor Service. I mean, would you believe it that he did all that? I think it's just amazing. I think, this is much more of a challenge, but it's also, it's also about the planning, isn't it? So if you've got any kind of basic infrastructure along a long route, and you've got the time, here's the thing, you've got the time to do it. This is kind of breaking boundaries. I mean, he also talks about, where is he going to go next and all some of the problems. It's an interesting read. This is from Clean Technica, the story, cleantechnica.com. So now, he's, I think he's got a YouTube channel. He's on Facebook and all that sort of stuff. So, quite, in Australia, I think he's got quite a lot of notoriety now as well. So I think it's a very interesting guy. I'd love to have a chat with him about it as well, and get him on the show, and talk to him about it. But that'd be really interesting. But there you go. Now, what's the guy's full name? I didn't really say here. Oh, sorry, Ed Darmanin. Ed Darmanin. Yeah, Ed, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Ed Darmanin. So there we go. Harley Davidson electric going across the whole of Western Australia to Eastern Australia along the Lunarbour plains. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So there we go. So that's that one there. I thought it was just a fantastic one. Okay, let's. I'm going to move away from Harley Davidson a little bit now, and just going to talk in some general terms what's going on out there in the world. Okay, this week in the UK, and I thought it tickled me. I thought it was quite funny. Okay, and I promise I will get into the comments in a minute. But it made me laugh because there's been a big movement, this whole narrative over the last few years about getting into electric vehicles, electric motorcycles, all these kind of stuff. And I've started to talk about it more and more because I think it's relevant, I think it's appropriate, and also about the value and the cost and everything like that. But one of the big selling points in here in the UK was always been that for electric vehicles, they don't have to pay an annual road tax. In other words, all vehicles here in the UK, we have to pay a road tax, and it depends on the size of the vehicle and the output, the energy, so the emissions output and all this sort of stuff, how much we actually pay, right? And also the initial purchase price and everything like that. So there's lots of different factors, but essentially, so they say, government and taxes, you never quite trust them. They say it's to help the upkeep of the roads, or pay for the upkeep of the roads. Well, it was supposed to, but I'm sure it goes into lots of other things as well. But electric vehicles, electric motorcycles, electric cars were always exempt, right? You say, no, you don't have to pay anything because you're not producing any emissions. However, now the UK Chancellor has basically said this. He's basically said this. They changed it up, and I'm thinking, do you know what? I knew this was going to happen. I knew this was going to happen, right? But basically, they said, right, from 2025, electric vehicles, electric motorcycles and cars will have to pay the road tax. Now, how much it's going to be? It's probably initially going to be a nominal fee, but it's as more and more people start buying electric vehicles and using less fuel, then they're going to up the price on the electric vehicles, aren't they? But they're also going to increase the fuel duty on petrol and diesel as well. So either way, you're getting stung. Death and taxes, as they say, death and taxes. You can't escape it. I just thought it was I chuckled to myself, not because I agree with it, but I just think that this is only ever going to be a short period. All those people saying, ha ha ha, we don't have to pay road tax because we're electric. My answer has always been, give it time, and you will. And guess what? I must be a prophet or something. A prophet of the world. I don't know. A prophet of the motorcycle world, but I knew it was coming. But there we go. So that's an interesting one. What's this one here? That's the next one there. Okay, the Motorcycle Live is the big show here in the UK. It's going on right now. It's going on now. I'm actually going on to it on Friday. Every other year, I usually go in within the first couple of days, 2 or 3 days. This year, things, life, everything has got in the way, so I'm having to delay it towards the end of this. So most of the stories are coming out. I'm not really doing a feature on Motorcycle Live this year. I may come back to it and ask your guys' opinion. If you went, I might do a special show to see what you thought of it, because it always comes under criticism, these things, big events and Motorcycle Live. And I've already heard from various different sources of, again, not best pleased with the value or the production value of the show. As always, there'll always be people who say, it's great, it's fantastic. So if you did go, let us know in the comments in the chat just in a moment, and I'll dig into those in a moment. But the story I want to talk about from from Motorcycle Live is this. Let me just bring this up. This is BSA. BSA, they brought out their Gold Star last year, or the last show they launched it. Now they've actually launched. Well, they haven't launched, so I've got to be careful how I say this. This is a concept bike that they've put on display there, and it's a scrambler. I really like scramblers, I've got to say. If you watch the channel, I'm always going on about them. The Fantic, Caballero, and whatever. But they've brought this one out here. I think it looks really nice. I've got to say, I think it looks really, really nice. The high mud guard. It's got the uprights. It's classic scrambler styling. But look, make no bones about it. This is a street scrambler style, because look at that exhaust is right at the bottom, and it's that should be up high, at least up high somewhere. So look, it looks really nice. It's got a big retro feel for me. Let me just bring this up here for you. It's got a big retro feel for me. I don't know, where it's taken its inspiration from, but this is from, who's this from? Visor Down. Nice coloring, nice. I mean, say this is only a concept bike. They've basically taken, they've basically taken the motorcycle, the one motorcycle they have, the Gold Star, BSO Gold Star, and they've just about reworked and said, look, we're going to produce this, or we could produce this. Let's see what people think. Thumbs up from me if this ever came out. And again, how much it would be and all that sort of stuff, and whatever. I mean, this would be, it's saying the concept bike is a 652cc single cylinder engine. I believe that's the same engine in the Gold Star as well. But hey, let us know if you've been there, you've seen it. Let us know what you think of it in the flesh. But there we go. That's that story there. And I thought that was interesting to bring up for you. Okay, the next story here, again, I'm just going to quickly brush over this one. Not brush over, but talk about it. A couple of Japanese brands. This it is Yamaha. This is from, who's this from? More Bikes. There's More Bikes. They're basically coming out and saying that there might be a new race bike coming out from Yamaha. They've registered a load of model names, and there's talk that one of these could come out. There's no guarantee, they're saying, but there's lots of things. A lot of people are saying, or they're saying here, that they reckon it's going to be a new R9 based around the existing MT09. Could be on the way for 2023. There's lots of different, and there's obviously concept bikes galore and all that sort of stuff. I mean, Yamaha have already said that they're producing lots of new bikes as well. Gotta say that it's been quite a bit of news coming out from Suzuki as well. Some new bikes, some updates. Obviously, their model year bikes 2023. I think they released new prices for their V-Strom 1050 as well. I talked about that. Was it the 820 that they've brought out as well? So look, interesting stuff from Suzuki. Suzuki for me, just like Harley Davidson in some respects, and a couple of other brands, I think they've lost they're a bit lackluster. They've lost their pizzazz for me in the last few years. But there we go. I mean, that's just me. What what do I know? BMW here. I just wanted to bring this to you. If you watched the live show a couple of weeks ago, this is from their press site. They talked about the 1250 that they've got. This is the Roadster version, I suppose, for want of a better word, that they've also bringing out for 2023. Some nice little specs on it as well. What was the other one they brought? Oh yeah, so the 1250 R and the 1250 GS Adventure. Just keep in mind, there's also quite a few reports coming out of that they're trialing or they're testing a new 1350 GS Adventure as well. Whether that will ever come to market, I talked about this and showed pictures about this on a few weeks ago as well. But there's lots of write-up on this. I mean, you go to the main BMW sites, they've got all the info on this, but I think it actually looks quite nice. I mean, I've got a few close-up pictures here for you as well. Here we go. I mean, for me, it looks okay. I mean, yeah, this angle, this paint scheme, I think it does a better justice than that. But if you're looking at a naked and a roadster, with the Boxster engine as well, yeah, some people would definitely like it. Some people would think it's a bit, lame. But that's just the way it is in all things in life, isn't it? Okay. Now, the next, let me just come back here. So let me just do that. Right. On the theme of Motorcycle Live, obviously new bikes and everything, new console. I got a press release from Langen. Langen are a motorcycle brand here, and they've produced this two-stroke motorcycle here. I mean, here's some close-up pitch for you. It looks really nice, I've got to say. I mean, it does. It looks really, really sweet. This is from Langen. Say tech specs from here. It's a 249.5 cc. I mean, what? Yeah, that seems a bit weird. But I've got this. I've got the specs up here for you. It's a 90 degree V-twin cylinder, 2-stroke, 6 gears, extractable. Extractable C a gearbox, just like Harley Davidson, I believe. 76 horsepower, 45 newton meters, 6 power to weight ratio, greater than 600 horsepower per ton. I'm not sure that means anything to me. Power band, okay, it's a high revving 2-stroke. Yeah, that makes sense. 9,500 to 11,700. 12,700 RPM. Electronic ignition, patented. Here you go. Look, £28,000 plus VAT, value added tax, on the road here in the UK. Now, apparently they've produced two of these bikes, and they are actually at the show. And after the show, they'll go into the owners that have already bought them as well. I believe that's right. If I've got that wrong, I do apologize. But Langen, as I say, I mean, go to their website. Is it langenmotorcycles.co.uk. But I think it's just really interesting that they've actually, I think, one of the only manufacturers out there who said, no, we're going to put out a 2-stroker. We're not doing 4-stroke, we're not doing, but a 2-stroke V-twin. That's interesting in itself for me. So, as I say, I'm a little bit cold here. That's why I'm rubbing my hands. So, the studio isn't as warm as it should be. Although I've got a little heater on, by the way, down there. Anyway, so that is Langen Motorcycles, right? So that's that bit. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, shall we? Let's talk about what I'm going to be talking about tonight. Free speech. I'm going to show you something here. Let me just bring this up here. I'm going to show you something and let you make up your own minds. Okay, right. So this is my YouTube channel. Okay, nothing really contentious about that. It's all fine. Right. Let me just try and find the content. I released this video here in the week, very short video about Indian motorcycles doing a recall on 7,800 bikes. I'll bring up the story in a moment. What is interesting on this, let me just do that. Comments, here we go. Haven't responded. Okay, so one of the comments from a guy, I'm not going to, it's all fuzzed out, and maybe you can see it, maybe you can't, right? He's basically saying spam, right? Spam. And he's basically saying on August 29th, 2022, Indian Motorcycle expanding the scope of the 2019 recall regarding a headlight control module, And he's basically said, the motorcycles shown in this video are not part of this recall, right? My answer to that was, you might want to rethink this comment and do some research. Just because the content of this short video is not known to you, it does not mean it's not true. Numerous press agencies are reporting this now too. Right. The reason why I brought this up, because it all relates to free speech, and it all relates to what people think they're entitled to say, and also when they engage their mouth before they engage their brain. And we all do this from time to time. I'm sure. I am definitely not immune from it, and I'm sure you're not too. But here's the thing, right? Let me just show you the story. Now, I picked this up through a press release earlier this week. Okay, earlier this week. So I thought I'd actually show it out. This is a publication called Auto Evolution, but there are actually many other. Excuse me. There are a few other motorcycle press magazines, online publications, websites, whatever, that are starting to release this story now as well. Okay, and even the United States. And basically, what this is, right? And if you watch my short, you would have seen get the gist of it. But basically, Polaris, Indian motorcycle manufacturers, they've had to recall, or they're in the process of recalling, about 7,800 motorcycles because of a fuel pump failure. And basically they're saying it could lead to a crash, it could lead to all that sort of stuff, right? But basically what this said, it's from they've done a safety recall, and it's basically affecting about 7,800 bikes. It's no less than 180 reports of the fuel pump failure, and I think that equated to about 1% of all the bikes. So it's a very small number in percentage, but still, it's still 180 cases. But also, it said that there was 26 cases of engine stall. So there's no injuries, no accidents, that kind of thing, but it could have done, potentially could have done, right? Okay, fine. They've done a safety recall. Indian, for me, done the right thing. They investigated it and tried to say, why is this fuel pump failing? And the fuel pump was being made by a Chinese manufacturer, and I believe they called Shin something. Shilin Electric and Engineering. When they started producing them in 2021, there's an impeller inside that has been over-engineered, or sorry, not over-engineered. It's thicker than the engineering specifications. Now, why a thicker impeller will cause the pump to fail? Maybe because of weight, or maybe it's because of dynamics. It's actually causing more stress on the rest of the components in the pump. Hence why. I do not know. But basically, they're saying it was manufactured thicker than the engineering specification. So what they've done, they said, right, okay, all those bikes that have been made by all the bikes containing this fuel pump and this impeller made by this company, this Chinese company, that are produced between the 5th of February 2021 and the November the 4th, 2022. So it's right up to date here, right? They're basically going to be called in, and it's precisely 7,811 vehicles, and this is for the Scout and the Chief bikes, right? Now, which particular models, but I assume it's right across the range. It doesn't specify which market these bikes were sold in, whether it's global bikes or whether it's just in the United States or whatever. Okay, and basically what it's saying is that dealers will be notified by November the 18th. So I released this. I can't remember actually when I released this. Let me just have a look here, see if I can look at my published. When did I publish it? Hold on. If I can get this. I think I published it Saturday. Yes, Saturday, I believe. Yes, Saturday. So what? So when was that? Today's the 21st. So the 19th. Is that right? Yes, the 19th. So I published this. So it's like it would have been a day after the dealers would have been notified, and dealers will be notified November 18th, and known owners will have to wait until December the 2nd to get notified, maybe in writing, but also to get the ball rolling to get all these parts swapped out. I mean, you might have a bike that is completely no problem at all, but as with recalls, they're going to say, right, bring your bike in, we've got the part, you're going to get a new fuel pump for your bike. So the question is here, it's not the story. The story I put out as news, as I got information, I wanted to share that with you guys as well. But it's also a public service announcement as well, to say, look, I've heard this about from India Motorcycles. They're going to do a recall. It's backed up, which I can see, backed up with press releases and press information. But also, I'm getting other information as well, right? Then you'll get one person, and it only takes one person. But these things, I'm just using that as an example. I don't want to dig them out in particular, but so it's important to raise this point to say, well, a single person can say that's rubbish, that's spam, that's whatever, and they've totally not misunderstood. They just do not know. Now, I was watching a story unfold here in the UK over the last couple of weeks about different things, about racism, about equality, and all this sort of stuff. And they're talking about free speech. Do you have the right to say anything? Do you have the right to be offensive? Do you have and I suppose if you believe in ultimate free speech, yes, you do have the right to say anything. You should be able to say anything. I mean, most people draw the line on, being offensive or being inciting violence and inciting hatred and all that sort of stuff, right? Obviously, this is not what happened in this case. This is just somebody who wanted to have a pop at me to say, I should get my facts straight, when actually they've just, shown themselves up, as they say over here. You're showing yourself up there, son. You know what I mean? And it's one of those things where you think, well, people can say whatever they want to say. And obviously, from behind a keyboard, people say whatever they want to say because there's no repercussions. There's no physical contact with anybody. You can say things. But even if you're physically close to people, people think that they can say whatever they want to say. Now, sometimes they just engage the mouth before engaging or open the mouth before they engage the brain. Sometimes they're just talking from an ill-informed position. Sometimes they'll take a snippet of truth and try to formulate their whole argument to counter somebody else's position. And you see this time and time again. Q&A sessions, people will stand up, they go to a university or to a public forum, and then all of a sudden you get hecklers in the crowd, and then people start saying, what about this, what about you're racist or whatever, or this position on global warming is this. And in the end, most of the time these people are just shown up to be complete idiots. They've taken a very small point somewhere which may have an element of truth, but they've kind of morphed it into an argument which doesn't work. And we've got a big thing here in the UK of people protesting against fuel and oil and licenses and all that sort of stuff, but most of the time they're losing the public argument because of the tactics they employ and the things that they say and everything. You think, well, sometimes you might have a point, but you're going about it the wrong way. There's a big story here the last couple of weeks where a YouTuber got into trouble for, saying a stupid joke, racist thing. But now, it's talking about, the what people have to say and how they say it, but also the freedom to say it, but also the freedom of other people to come back at them as well. But here's the key point, and I thought it was very interesting, and I noticed this. And if you're with me, you might understand where I'm coming from in this. We talk about free speech, but we talk about the forums and platforms that enable us to say whatever we want to say. YouTube's first premise was always this: broadcast yourself, say whatever you want to the world. And I'm a massive, massive believer in this. So YouTube, if you're watching this, massive believer in that YouTube should be about YouTube. Broadcast yourself. This is not about television. This is not high production value. This is not about that. This is about showing your life, doing whatever, having your opinions, whatever it is, no matter if it's serious or stupid stuff or whatever. But it's got to be about you, not about anything else. Anyway, so. And it's supposed to be the antidote to mainstream media, right? But unfortunately, YouTube has become a lot of mainstream media in many cases. It kind of copied things a lot. It kind of copied the way they do it in filming and, Hollywood and all that sort of stuff. But the point of that one interview I saw was to just say, look, if you think that a platform is going to give you that freedom of speech, just like YouTube was supposed to, what it started out of, it's not doing that anymore. It's not doing that anymore, because if you're involved in YouTube, we have very strict guidelines of what we can say, what we can't say. And, There's limitations on swearing and how that relates to income. There's limitations on the kind of content that you can produce, the kind of things that you can say, and hatred speech and all that sort of stuff, right? Obviously, violent stuff and everything like that. Which, for the most part, you think, yeah, that's very sensible. That's right. You operate within a certain sense of moralistic parameters, let's say, and that's your freedom of speech within these boundaries. Now, you could say, well, there shouldn't be any boundaries at all because people should be able to say whatever they want to say. And if people want to come back at them for those polarizing views, then that's up to them. You open that can of worms, you open up the Pandora's box and let all the insults come in, and you have to be able to take that. But the problem is, as we know, people take it too far. People say things, do things, and then there's a risk to life and all that sort of stuff, right? But the interesting thing here was that when you're talking about a company like YouTube, like Facebook, whatever platform, and you say that you want to say anything, right? You want to broadcast yourself, say whatever you want to say. Well, much of that is based upon what YouTube as a company, as a massive global presence, billions of people, bigger than countries, bigger than any politician, self-serving politician, right? Okay. They're going to say, well, hold on, we're a business. We're trying to sell our product. Our product is YouTube videos, but on the back of that, it's advertising as well. Advertising fuels everything, right? So if they're not going to be able to make advertising revenues, then obviously they're going to say something. But also what I noticed this, and this is the point I was trying to get to, and I do apologize for taking so long. But YouTube has put restrictions, and just like Twitter, just like Facebook, just like most platforms, in fact, virtually every platform, unless you go to the dark web or unless you go behind a barrier entertainment. And when I talk about barrier entertainment, it's just that you have to pay for a subscription on a private website or anything. And possibly the most notable one of late, last few years, has been what most adult entertainers or adult porn stars, that kind of thing, they work behind the screens of like OnlyFans and stuff like that. But that is not just for them, that kind of work. It's for anybody. I could put an OnlyFans page out tomorrow. You pay a subscription to see, specific content from me. It could just be me doing this. It could be me just, playing around with a hat or wrenching on a bike. It doesn't mean anything. It's just that it's a subscription service you're paying to, right? But it's not free stuff that you're getting here. It's just, stuff that if you're really a fan of mine, maybe you want to see some exclusive content there. Now, for some people, that could be sexual. Sometimes that could be, just normal. For others, it could be something that they're saying something quite radical, right? So again, what point does free speech end? What does it start? But at some point, somebody's going to put a restriction on you. So when COVID first hit, and there's all these different opinions, and people worried, and people saying things, and there's this whole thing of fake news. YouTube came out and actually put a ban of what you could say about COVID. They put a restriction. They would demonetize it. You weren't able to make a video about YouTube and actually have it monetized. So basically, you just made your work completely useless if you were talking about COVID. Now, some people carried on. Some people got their channels taken down. Some people got their videos taken down for saying this. If you think that's just one incident, think again, because they've done it again with Ukraine. Now, whether you agree with Ukraine or Russia or whatever, that's another point, and I'm not here to discuss that. But what I'm talking about is the process of a platform kind of imposing what you're allowed to talk about, and not only even allowed what you're allowed to talk about, but imposing heavy restrictions on what you're allowed to talk about. And how you're allowed to, even if you're just talking about it in a kind of random way. So COVID in particular, if you at a very early stage, this is not now, but a very early stage, if you were very critical of the COVID, the vaccine, the causes, and all that sort of stuff, YouTube were very much saying, right, this is about, you're not doing free speech, you're putting out false information. The problem is it was a narrative. It was a narrative that everybody's bought into. Everybody's bought into what is right, what is wrong, government-led, international government led, all this sort of stuff. If you listen to a podcast of Joe Rogan, he talks about this on a regular basis about, the myths, truths, the lies, and everything like that, and what people were fed, and then now has been subsequently found out to be true, that all this sort of stuff was just wrong. And and this, at what level do we say we have free speech, and when should we exercise free speech? Because it's not only, in the motorcycle world, in the biker world, you say, yeah, we have freedom, we have this, we have that. But I always said the only time you're going to have real freedom in the motorcycle world if you're independent. You're not part of a group. You're not part of a motorcycle club. You're not a part of this. You might have freedom and solidarity amongst your colleagues or brothers or sisters or whatever it is, the rest of your community. But you don't have actual freedom to say whatever you want. So if you want real freedom to ride wherever you want, do whatever this, you got to be by yourself. You just got to go and do whatever you want to do. And, so people become part of a motorcycle club or part of this for lots of different reasons, but it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with freedom of choice, or freedom of movement. So if we're taking a biker's point of view, let's say a mindset to say, I just want to go wherever I want to go, I want to do what I want to do, I want to think whatever I want to think, I don't want to be restrained by the chains of society, by the oppressive society, all that sort of stuff, or whatever, right? Then if you're on YouTube, let's say, or on Facebook or whatever you say, you're bound by whatever you say. You're being monitored. And if you think this is conspiratorial, think again, because it isn't. It's only a conspiracy if it's not true, as the old saying goes. It's only a conspiracy if it's not true. And people talk about this now, and openly talking about the way people are using TikTok. They're openly talking about TikTok, and all this is being monitored. Data is being shared all over the place. There have been documentaries about the use of social media and how the data from social media is being used and warped. Hey, it's quite simple. You can have a thought, you can say something in your home with your Alexa device, you can search for something on your computer. Next thing you know, wherever you are, you're seeing adverts of stuff that you've been searching for, or something that you've said, and it says it all the time. So everything that we say is connected, and I wouldn't say monitored is probably the wrong word, but it's somewhere, it's being listened to, in inverted commas. But at some point, no matter what you say, somebody is going to monitor it. And I'll give you a case in point. There was a local college recently near here a few years ago, where one of the students, they were going to go to some kind of fancy dress kind of reenactment at the school. I can't remember exactly what the nature of the story was, but he posted some pictures of him. He's going to take a gun into school, and basically it's a fake gun. They were going to do like a Rambo scene, I don't know, whatever it was, right? Anyway, the FBI, right, got in touch with the college directly because it flagged up on their system. That's how closely monitored it is, right? So not only have you got to be careful what you say, quite rightly, you can't be going around saying all hate speech and all this kind of stuff, but also you've got to be careful on where you're saying it. But also, even if you're allowed to say something that isn't even hate speech, it might be something that is just against the narrative of whatever a government wants to say, or whatever a platform wants you to say, and all this sort of stuff. And it's a very interesting thing here. So when I read comments, let's say, not only on my videos but on lots of other videos, when people are making accusation, and they spout some nonsense, or they're be trolling, or whatever it is, all this sort of stuff, and you think, yeah, you're exercising your right for free speech, and absolutely right. You're exercising your right for free speech, and that's the way it should be, because it's a non-hateful thing. It's somebody's being critical, but it doesn't bother you. It is what it is, right? But as an illustration, it just goes to show that people can say anything, and they say it from a position that they're ill-informed, and they say something that may or may not be true, or may be partially true, or might have some element of truth, but doesn't mean the whole thing is true. Doesn't mean that the whole thing is ripe for consumption, as it were. So somebody can say something against you or him or her or they or them, whatever the pronoun is these days, the correct one. They can say anything about a religious body, anything about a political body, anything about a socio-economic body, anything about a gender body, whatever, anything you want to say, and then you can be as tame or as aggressive as you want, but depending on how, in terms of free speech, right? But depending on how aggressive you get, or how against the narrative, against the norm that you're going to be, you're going to come under closer and closer scrutiny and face more and more restrictions. As long as you're not talking about something, you know, that is contentious, let's say, then you can operate liberally within a wide open area of free speech. But as soon as you start bringing into your own thoughts or your own devices or your own vices, let's say, and whatever practices you want to do, all of a sudden your field gets narrower and narrower. And it's like this kind of coning effect, this coning effect of free speech. Free speech only works at a certain level within boundaries. There's always boundaries, and depending which society you live around the world will determine how much original free speech latitude you have and on what kind of terms you have it. But as soon as you start to say getting more and more critical, or then all of a sudden it starts getting narrower and narrower and narrower, you see. And I thought that was very interesting this week that I read a couple of pieces, and then I saw a couple of videos as well, and they're talking about it. I think, well, look, we can all relate to this. We can all relate to the element of what we want to say, what people say to us, the ramifications of that, the consequences of that, and that you're right not only to say something, but also the right of somebody to come back at you and highlight where you are right and where you are wrong. I mean, it's a massive discussion here, but I always think there's a bit of a myth about us bikers, that we are this kind of, I don't know, freedom thinking, free thinking, guzzling kind of tribe of people. When I think we can be just as narrow-minded or just as restrictive as anybody else, because essentially we just ride bikes. We're not doing anything special in that regards. We don't live on the mountaintop, away from somebody else. Well, most of us don't, right? It's an interesting concept, I think, free speech, and what you believe you can say and what you're allowed to say, and how much of what you say is monitored. And at some point, not you as an individual, but collectively, how those restrictions are narrowed or decreased, or sorry, how the restrictions are increased, so our freedom of speech reduces, and we don't even know it's happening. That's the thing, we don't even know it's happening. So freedom of speech, freedom in general, is a lack of choices, isn't it? A lack of choices on what you want to do, a lack of choices on what you believe you should be allowed to do. And let's face it, if you ride a motorcycle just like I do, you want as many freedoms as you want. You want as little as fewer restrictions as possible. You want to get on your bike and you just want to hit the road and go. You don't want, well, for the most people don't want speed limits. Most people, and there's a great call for people to say no more speed limits. We just do whatever we want to do. And most people, do you know what? They wouldn't ride at excessive speeds anyway. They've done a few tests on this, a few studies in different countries where they remove restrictions and people still kind of level off in a kind of even playing field. People just do the right thing, for want of a better word. Do you know what? Let me get into some comments as well. I know that I've missed so many. Here. Let's just say Ewan McGregor, Charlie Borman. Yeah, didn't have very good luck riding live wires from Argentina to Los Angeles. Firmware issues, charging issues. Yeah, I think that's the big thing, isn't it? I mean, live wire then was very new. Obviously, they've had a couple of years now. The electric motorcycle market has come up. But if you got charging points along the way, that's the way it is. would like to hear from him. Yeah, from the guy who did the Harley trip. Yeah, I think so. And you have to wear those those ugly license plates. Yeah, that's for sure. That is definitely for sure. Is the V-Strom really new? No, it isn't really new at all. It's I think the 800, 820 is a new bike. Just new updates. That's all it is. 76 horsepower from a 250. Yep. Elon Musk. Well, I'm sure he has a big bank balance as well. There we go. Here we go. The NTSA has a listing of all US recalls motorcycles that can be viewed. Yes, that's right. That's right. Keyboard courage here from Mudmate. Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, it's not just that though. It's not just keyboard warriors and everything. I'm not just talking about. I'm actually talking about in general. You know, your ability to be able to say things. Your ability right now to put a comment down there in the comments section. You have a freedom to do it. Technology, YouTube, let's say in this case, but it could be any platform, right? Has given you the tools in order for me to talk to you wherever you are in the world, which is amazing in itself, right? And also giving you the technology to be able to talk to me. Okay, granted in written form, but we could do a live video link with people as well and just speak direct to it. You could be in Timbuktu. I could be, well, I'm here in the UK. You know, it's just amazing. It's just amazing. There we go. Is your tea a bit tepid? Go and get a new cup. Do you know what? I'm going to take a slurp of this and I'll let you know. I think you can tell from my expression that it's gone a bit cold. There we go. A quick check shows Indian has a recall going on fuel pumps on at least one 2020 model recall. There we go. I didn't have time to check all the models affected. There we go. So there we go. Look, you've just done your research. Okay, you've done your research to see. Look, there we go. There is a recall for fuel pumps. There we go. That's it. You're beginning to adversely affect my delicate personal feelings. Well, do you know what? People get affected by lots of different things, don't they? They love to complain about things that people aren't even offended by, aren't they? There we go. Free speech on YouTube now. Well, that's right. It's they used to, and this is again, if you watch my channel, I'm a great believer, and I keep on saying this, and I'll say this till blue in the face. And this is why, whilst I don't overtly criticize other YouTube channels or motorcycle YouTube channels, I do think that for many of them, not all, but many of them have sold themselves out. I believe that. And I'm not talking about they sold themselves out because they're big YouTube channels. I think in general, even small ones have sold themselves out. They're talking about things. They're not having opinions because they just don't want to offend somebody in terms of from a financial point of view. They just don't want to. Oh, just in case Yamaha are able to send me a motorcycle to review, you know. Then what are you on YouTube for? What are you on YouTube for? What are you doing here? What is the premise of being here? And people have different views and different opinions on this. My opinion is that just that my freedom of speech, just say what I want, There we go. Yeah, database shows there's 7,611 bikes affected. I think there could be it could be a misprint on that because here it says, what was it, 7,811. If it's 7,611, okay, yeah, maybe it is. That is. Here we go. Here we go. I read the Who are working with the WF to create a worldwide universal travel passport, trending on Twitter. Oh well, there we go. We love you, mate. We don't dish you. Well, I think you should. Should you? Let's have your opinions. Let's see what insults that you can send my way. There's a difference between hate speech, and speech that you hate. Yes, very, very, very true. Unfortunately, some can't differentiate. Absolutely, some can't differentiate, of course, between just critical analysis or being critical of a system or a belief or anything like that, absolutely. Yeah, mate, you need a mod to bounce some porn bots. Yeah, I just manually did it. I manually massaged the porn bot out of it. There we go. Look, here we go. Flat Cap Cafe Racer 7,811 is the correct number. I thank you. That's exactly what I said in the article. The article was correct. So there we go. Look, this isn't about what information I bring you and in whichever form I bring you. And I'm constantly experimenting with new ways of doing the videos and bringing information or stories or ideas or whatever it is. It's not about that. It's not about whether somebody wants to be critical about whatever I do or what somebody else does or whatever's a platform or whatever the internet would allow you to say or do. It's not about that. It's about our awareness of what we are saying and what we're allowed to say, if we're even aware of what we're saying. And this is where I look at other YouTubers, right? I look at other YouTubers who are making content. And a lot of the things that I see, and maybe you have the same impression, maybe you don't. Okay, so this is only my personal impression of what I see. I am not just talking about motorcycle YouTubers here. I'm talking about the broad spectrum of YouTubers, right? I see a lot of people, majority of people, who've lost what YouTube is about, who've lost what the broadcast about YouTube is about. And they're trying to play some kind of financial game, some kind of game to get notoriety, game to get some kind of, I don't know, acceptance or whatever it is. But very few are just being themselves. Very few are just saying, look, having discussions, talking to people. It's almost like you've got to be reactionary or you've got to be polarizing. You've got to do this and that. And how long does it take? How long does it take? It's just, it will come to a point where people were only on a platform if they continue that for a short amount of period of time, or they can only do that sort of content for a short amount of period of time. Because at the end of the day, you've got to be real with yourself, haven't you? And whether people will like it or not, you've got to be real with yourself. Now, you're always going to have a certain amount of people who will like what you say and like what you do, even if you're getting involved or propagating hate speech or trying to incite violence. Let's say there'll always be some people out there who will kind of be on your side and endorse what you say, but there'll be a lot of people, of course, who will be anti what you say. I call it the anti-antis, right? The anti-antis, and this is basically there's people who have a position anti something else, right? And then you'll have the people who are anti the people who are anti the people whatever. So it's just like, and they're not even in favor of the original point. They're just anti whatever this person is saying. So as you said rightly, you said before, I can say something about Indian motorcycles, then all of a sudden, just because I've said something about Indian motorcycles, I'm immediately wrong. I could say something about BMW, Suzuki, whatever. In some people's eyes, I'm immediately wrong. Now, in other people's eyes, they say, well, I'm right. Other people's eyes say, I don't want to listen to that. I can't be asked to listen to that. Other people will say they'll take the time, they'll sit down, they'll listen, and they'll go, interesting. So let me think about that. Let me consider that. Okay, yeah. Alf, you're talking a load of rubbish. Because this, why, and this, and it's because of this reason. And go, or people will engage in the conversation and say, actually, this is something else you might want to consider. Great. That's just having a conversation like you would, if you met somebody face to face. You're just having a conversation, and the conversation expands and it develops, and you start going off in different tangents, let's say, and you can do a full circle after you've had an exhaustive conversation, and your original opinion is not the same. You think, yeah, you're right. And do you know what? That happens to me all the time. I go into a conversation with somebody, and at the end of it, I'm thinking, do you know what? Yeah, what I originally started thinking isn't quite the case. Or, I hadn't heard a certain aspect or a certain angle of something. And this happens in all society, in all walks of life, and not only from the motorcycle world, again, because I kind of view us as being some kind of free thinkers in many ways, or I know that's wishful thinking, I suppose, but that's kind of a romantic view of the way I see it. And maybe that's because we've always been sold this story of freedom and the open road and all that sort of stuff. And maybe that's kind of the imagery of the last 40 years that we've had to endure. But, in my mind, it's always that. And so when I'm on the bike, when I'm, in the middle of, in the middle of nowhere at 3 o'clock in the morning on my bike, and I'm just thinking, one, it's bloody black and it's dark and it's cold and I'm, uncomfortable and it's spooky and I'm scared and all this sort of stuff. But at the same time, I think, well, I'd much rather be here than somewhere else, if you know what I mean. So that's where I think, we've got time in our own heads to be, thinking about things and doing things. So we have we go where we want to go. We get on our bikes and we ride, well, within reason, right? Within the laws of society. As I say, there's laws of society, there's restrictions, there's road laws, there's restrictions there. There's restrictions on how you can modify your bike in some cases, certainly how fast you can go, whatever. So there's always restrictions. There's always restrictions. Or you hit a pothole. That's right. There's always restrictions, or you hit a pothole or a tree or a wall, depending on what you do, but listen, let's have a look here. I just do videos on the things I do, not for everyone. Yeah, I mean, I don't either, really. I appreciate your hard work and willingness to put yourself out there. Well, thank you very much. That's very kind of you. But look, I think it's important that you do that. I think it's important that you have your own opinions, you have your own position, and it is your position and not somebody else's. You're not copying anybody else. I mean, my take on all of this has always been, look, whatever you do, be yourself. Just experiment. Do whatever you want to do. Always try and push yourself to formulate your own ideas. Get informed. Have conversations. All that kind of stuff. But there we go. Yeah, there we go. Yes, good video about the forks. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I got them all put back together. Can you see them? Let me just turn the camera there. There's a video coming out about this shortly. There we go. There's the bike. There's the forks, headlights on there, and everything like that. So the bike is coming together, bits and pieces. A long way to go. I do talk about it in an upcoming video as well. There we go. Oh, look. 382 per gallon here in New Orleans. Crikey, I tell you what, in the when I used to live in the States, I can't even remember what the price was, but all I do remember is that people were hopping mad because of the fuel price rise in the previous, let's say, 10 years of what it had been. And I always used to laugh at the people in the United States where I was living and say, crikey, I think you got to about $1 a gallon there, and I was saying $1 a gallon. We're paying that. We're paying something like $1 a liter or something. It might have been, no, it would have been a lot more than that. So but over here right now, it's so crikey, 160, 170 pounds, £1.70, which in a liter. So £1.70. What's that? For that's £6. Crikey, £6.80. No, we're not talking about $10 a gallon, are we? Something like that. It's something ridiculous. It's between about £8.50, $9 a gallon. It's ridiculous. Okay, depending on the exchange rate, of course. Yeah, and it could be less than that in terms of exchange rate. But there we go. Darren Hoff, 39 cents a gallon. Okay, so 39 cents a gallon, right? That would have been back in the day, of course. And I was in the United States about what we're talking now, over 25 years ago now. Over 25 years ago now. That and it gone up to, I think it's either 90 cents or $1 or something like that. Maybe a little bit more, I can't remember. But it used to be 40, 50 cents back in there, only a few years before, relatively speaking. So, but so there we go. Get yourself a USB warmer cup. Yes, I need to do that, really. I mean, the problem is I'm in a cold workshop here, and I got a cold table, so it's not. Yeah, you're right. I do need. But look, you can't even see it. It's still a full cup. I talk too much. That's what it is. I talk too much. Good to see the forks back on. Thank you. Yes, I'm going backwards in the comments here, by the way. There we go. Look, so. Oh, here we go, Jeff. Hello, Jeff. I have a 2020 Harley FLSB Sport Glide. I appreciate all your Sport Glide videos. Thank you. I've benefited from many of your maintenance tips, modifications, and other upgrades. Oh, thank you very much, Jeff. That's very kind. I'm glad they help. I'm glad they help. And they were of a period where I was just exploring my own bike and just identifying with all the stuff that I used to do on bikes and just finding out about the Harley as well. So I was making content about it, and I always thought, well, actually, this doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Why is this here? You know, what's happening here? You know, maybe other people aren't having similar kind of problems. I mean, it was of a time when the Softails were quite new. They'd only been out, let's say, a year and a half. And also the Sport Glide had just come out about a year as well. So I thought it was, that was the reason for doing it. But say it's now it's different. 32 cents back in 1972. But wasn't there a price hike again after that, after the fuel crisis in 73, 74? It jumped up then, didn't it? And then I think it came back down again. Then, just like many things, it just kind of got more and more and more. I mean, again, I'm talking about another country's sort of history, social history, and I don't really know it. I kind of identify with the United States maybe more than most other countries because I lived there for a number of years. But there we go. There we go. Sorry, what's this one? Good thing we ride motors and get a 40 40 plus mileage and use premium. Yeah. Lazy ass bike build. Just noticed. Oh, do you know what? Yeah. It's a bit of tongue in cheek there. It may end up just staying like that. Let's put it that way. The other panels have got some choice words on them too as well. So I think I'm gonna have to respray them anyway because I've scratched them. Would you believe I sprayed them? They were dry. I put them down when the frame was just on a bit lower down there, and accidentally they fell and so. But there we go. Listen, I hope you enjoyed the show tonight. So it has been a bit, it's a bike mag show. I'm talking about all sorts of different things that affect us all, not only about motorcycles, right? I don't want you to just think this is only ever going to be about motorcycles, especially in this, what's the story, Biker Glory segment, or I might do specific live streams. So I'm just talking about a subject that affects us all. It doesn't matter whether you ride a bike or not, But I think it's just a really eye-opening thing when you start talking about free speech and the things that you think you can say and what you want to say and what you're allowed to say. And, it's a huge topic and you could go on, and on. And it really depends from your point of view. It depends from where you're sitting. What your personal belief is and what your religion is and what your social standing is, what your socio-economic group or ethnic group you're from. So many religious group, so many different positions to take, and you see things in a different way according to what where you are. But there we go. Thanks, Alf. No, thank you. I love my Kawasaki 500 triple in the 70s. You should put that motor in your build. Wow. I think I'm having enough trouble with the Z750 engine. What does everyone else ride? I ride a 2014 Street Glide. Nice bike. I was looking at one the other day, actually. Very, very nice. I had an offer of a cheap one, actually. It was a 2014 Street Glide last year. In many ways, I wish I'd taken it. Ultra limited, very, very nice. Madvax, We had a badass bike club that all rode big cowies in the 70s. Yeah, look, people always this is look, motorcycle clubs. They kind of make me laugh, right? It not that as the clubs make me laugh, but the whole stuff around the whole thing makes me laugh a little bit, because there is this very, it almost seems that in some quarters it's only about an American motorcycle, Harley Davidson, gotta ride that. And there's lots of people who've grown up or who are on social media now, and they think that that's all it is, and it's all it ever has been. But you could have the same club in a different country and they ride completely different bikes, right? You can, as I was talking about Japanese motorcycle clubs, there, totally different culture. You know, you got clubs over here, totally different culture. All around Europe, totally different. So clubs and groups and all that sort of stuff, it's all, you know, I just find it, I find it interesting, the people's thoughts on it, rather than I find the subject of motorcycle clubs interesting. I hope that makes sense. Does that make sense? I'm not sure if it does. But anyway, listen, I'm an observer of people. I'm a student of life, and I'm just trying to evolve all the time, and hopefully not offend anybody along the way. And if I do apologize, but not a great deal, if you know what I mean. Because in the end, it's all about just trying to be yourself, and just having your own thoughts and living in a cave, and just working on your bikes, riding them every now and again, and everybody, you know, having a good time. Uh, I like this. Darren, I've owned 2 Hondas previously, bought a Harley after saving for 6 years. Yeah, lovely. On that point, I say this quite openly. I was late to the Harley Davidson party as well. I'd never owned one, so you know, before I got one. Snake Venom Green Purple. I've been fancying a KTM ADV2. Yeah, very nice. Hold on, I missed one. Oh yeah, here we go. European bike clubs are too well dressed. Oh my god, there we go. You obviously don't know the bike clubs that I've seen over many years. Let's face it, they're not very well dressed. you know, they may be well dressed in their own eyes, but I'm telling you, they're not well dressed. I mean, back in the day, back in the 70s when I was growing up, bike clubs and bike pubs, meeting places, it was all very much bike clubs, heavy metal scene, that kind of stuff, you know. So there we go. Listen, guys, it's been emotional. Thanks very much. Thanks for watching. Thanks for engaging. And hopefully you're enjoying the videos. Hopefully the little news stories I'm coming out with. I do research. I do these live shows to try and show you the evidence and show you where these stories are coming from as well. And hopefully it's bringing you information that you're not hearing from anywhere else as well. Or certainly you're hearing it with a different point of view, or from at a different point, as it were. But anyway, listen, thanks for watching, thanks for joining, and I will catch you again on another live stream, another show. I'll try and do some again this week. I'll see how it goes in my time frame as well. But listen, all there is to say on that subject is arrivederci. See ya.